Welcome to the Required podcast. This week we've got Yves Bizimana, hopefully I've got that right, who heads up Workwell Outsourcing. And so welcome to the show, Yves. Glad to have you on all those years from first meeting you on a golf course.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be on. I wish my golf had moved on, but yeah, still where you left it, unfortunately.
It's a really good bonding experience meeting someone on a golf course because you've generally got the four ahead of you who you moan about, the four behind you moan about, and your own game to moan about. So you get to know a man on a golf course.
I was quite calm, Andy. I think I was quite calm on that one. But yeah, if I was moaning, that would have been the day to moan because it was a terrible performance. Hopefully nobody remembers.
Well, I remember. So
can we leave it there?
We'll just leave it there, like your golf balls. We'll just leave it there. So, Yves, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and also as well how you got into the role that you now have.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I'm the MD for Workwell Outsourcing, which has recently just been rebranded. Previous to that, we were Worker Solutions, which is a back office provider of back office services. I've been in recruitment now for 21 years, actually. So I started back in recruitment with a company called TMP Worldwide, working in the back office. And most people ask me, what is the back office? And I'd say, well, that's the kind of the boring structural stuff that makes recruitment companies stay, because it doesn't matter how well you sell. If you don't have a working back office, eventually it will bring you problems, and those are working capital problems. So yeah, I've been in the back office for recruitment businesses since then. Started with TMP Worldwide and moved on to Hudson. And I think I really settled into back office when I moved to a company called Bainock & Clark, which is now part of the Adecco Group, and I was running their pay and bill, and then moved on to run that for Modis, which is Modis International now, also part of the Adecco Group. And yeah, it got exciting because when the financial crisis happened, I then went out to Budapest. We were looking at offshoring. We looked at India. We looked at Prague. Looked at a few places, and yeah, luckily I ended up going to Budapest to set up a shared service center. And post that, we were then acquired by Adecco. So I think everybody gets their fair share of acquisition, but I've seen some. And then we acquired some businesses as part of that process, and I moved back to the UK from Budapest, and joined James Khan's business later. After that, called Human Capital Group, and my remit there was to actually create a central platform on which that business could be sold as a group, because it was separate businesses like Eden Brown and other really good businesses now like Resourcing Group. And my remit was to help create that central platform on which the business could be sold, and they achieved that in 2014, and moved on to become Engage Recruitment Group. And then, yeah, moved on again in the world of back office when I left Engage Recruitment Group to kind of do consulting, a bit like yourself, Andy. I couldn't come out of recruitment. It was interesting. And I did consulting services for recruitment businesses, but realized that it was going to be difficult to service that many businesses. And so turned that into a business with what then was Worker Group. I knew the founders from past. They had sold to me. They had sold really well, really good guys, and so we partnered after really having a bit of a parade with people I could partner with to create a back office business. I chose Worker Group because I think they were the right partners in terms of thinking, alignment, also the way they approached clients, which was really good. And we created Worker Solutions, which went on to acquire EasyPay and became the business that it did. And then we were also acquired then by Workwell, and here we are.
So quite a tale of growing, acquired, growing, acquired. So one of the things that's always struck me about you is just how commercial you are and how salesy you are for, you know, what you term a back office person. You're very creative around what it is you do, and you're always, you know, why didn't you fancy doing the sales side of things?
Do you know, that's a really good question, Andy. I've always wondered, because there is a time back in back in 2012, I think, or before, no, 2008, I think, when I was starting my SEMA. I was really thinking, should I go into sales? I know recruitment because I pay everybody. I've always known how much everybody in recruitment earns, and it's well known to all of us that the recruiters get better paid than the back office. But I think I did come to that point where I did enjoy what I'm doing. It did make sense. We make a difference, even if it's sometimes a thankless difference. Nobody calls you to say you've paid everybody right, but everybody will call and scream when you pay one person wrong. So it's something I enjoyed doing, and I think back when you're younger, rookie, you get a kick out of people being thankful. So you're like, oh my God, thanks for sorting that out. And you do get some good recruiters who know how to create relationship with the back office. I think that kept me in it, but certainly moving forward, I recognized, especially after working with a human capital group, I realized the value in what we do. And I thought, actually, this could be a really good business, because a lot of recruitment businesses struggle with this back office, and it destroys some businesses. I've definitely come across businesses that, if we didn't do what we did, if I didn't help them personally, even as a consultant with what I did, they wouldn't be in that place. So selling, everybody else thinks I sell, but I tell you what, Andy, if you love what you do, you appear like you're selling, but actually I never sell anything. I only talk about how we can solve problems, and it looks like I'm selling. But one of my clients, a really big client of ours, says, Yves, why don't you join sales? You sell so well. And I'm like, no, but I'm not selling. I'm just talking about what we can do to solve your problem. So I think if you talk about something with a passion and with a belief that you can sort out what you can sort out, it looks like you're selling.
I think one of the interesting things for me is, certainly if you take contractors, so once the consultants place them, they're in and running, and then it's the quality of your back office and your middle office and the service. They don't see it as the consultant, they see it as the company. And if that's not on point, then their experience, no matter how good the contract is, however easy the placement was, if they're not getting paid on time, if their pay is wrong, suddenly that's a massive problem for them.
Absolutely. When we started Worker Solutions, our target was big business, right? And we did intend to go after small business, but we started with bigger businesses because we know that's where the big problems lie. You would be surprised, Andy. Well, you work with all of them, so you would know. But a lot of people would be surprised that these big businesses do have big problems in the back office. And the reasons they have that is mainly because of platforms that haven't been revisited. So it's been a lot of acquisition, and you're trying to put businesses together, or it could be that it's grown up with the technology it had in the past, and everybody fears to make that hard decision of outsourcing or changing platforms, because your job is on the line if you make the wrong decision. And when I speak to decision makers, I have to help them feel comfortable that we understand what they're doing, we understand how precious it is, and actually, if you don't fix it now, it will be as much as a problem, if not worse, than getting it wrong. So actually, you might as well take the dive now with people who know what they're doing to support you, rather than wait and play safe, because playing safe, we know in the long run, is never safe, right? You just need to look at the old businesses like Kodak and everything else in terms of just staying where you are. You do disappear. So it's really important to notice technology is changing. Platforms are becoming more integrated, and if you don't move with the times, you are offering less value to your contractors, to your clients, and certainly to your in-house team in terms of efficiencies.
Yeah, I guess it's a constant challenge around companies and how much they invest in those middle and back office services, because it's difficult to show that return, I guess. So perhaps you can measure it with how quickly you get paid, with the amount of cash that you collect in those type of measures. You can measure it as customer service with NPS, etc. But ultimately, do you find often you're pitching for wallet spend against the front office, against training programs for those guys, or salary increases or bonuses?
It really depends who you're talking to. If I'm lucky and I get to speak to a CFO or an FD, In big business, it's not a difficult sell because usually the problem would be we're not collecting working capital is a problem because we're not collecting cash. We're not collecting cash because we can't bill correctly. We can't bill correctly because usually the system or process doesn't allow that. And so when you start to look, it's rarely the people. There are some businesses where it has been the people because you have a gap in knowledge, but it's usually that the systems are not set up to support what the business has become. And I think when you're talking about working capital there, we can't collect cash. It's an easy sell. In fact, in most cases, people come to us rather than us find them, right? And therefore, you're not really selling. You're actually convincing them that you know how to solve their problem. In that case, as opposed to a cold sell, we hardly ever do a cold sell with big business. We usually have businesses come to us from a referral from somebody else because we've solved the problem. So that's good in that way because they see the value. If I was selling, on the other hand, to a sales director, it's a bit harder because they're like, "What are you talking about?" So that usually is a harder piece if you're selling to a sales director because the value in it is a lot less, unless, as I have come across some sales director who are also responsible for the operational side in the back office. In that case, then it's not so difficult because they know they have a problem, they just don't know how to fix it. And in that case, then you start talking to them about the problem.
So I think it's pretty common ground that we're going into some form of global recession. How long, how deep, how much? And it's the sort of the talk of the town this week. We've had big layoffs from Meta, Twitter, Google, etc., etc. So this is probably the start of a trend, at least in TA. Agencies probably haven't started to see that just yet. What advice would you give to agencies going into an uncertain market? You'd have been here before, you'd have seen this before a couple of times, probably 3 or 4 actually, with 20 odd years experience. So what would be your advice to agency owners or FDs who perhaps haven't just been in this situation before?
I think cost obviously is key, right? In terms of inefficiencies in the business. I look at big business and small business differently because we support both. We support big business in terms of their back office, in terms of how it should work and how well it works. With smaller businesses, we support them with funding, right? So, but the problem is the same, which is, are you spending more than you should on anything, right? And I think when the times are good, you don't really look closely enough. And if you wait too long to look closely enough, it's too late, right? So it's really important to look at where you spend most of your money early. So for example, on technology and platforms, do you need to have everything you have? Because if you outsource to people like us, and this is definitely not a sale, Andy, this is real. This is what I was talking about when you're trying to solve problems. Because if you outsource, you do solve a lot of problems in terms of people, platforms, which are really important, because to get the right platforms, it's not just about paying for them, it's about putting them correctly in the business to do the right thing. So actually, if you get rid of all that cost, depending on size of inefficiency, you can find actually that, just outsourcing your back office can make a big difference in terms of your cost and efficiency. And you don't then have to worry about, because what happens in these situations as well is good people tend to stay where they are. So actually, if you need people, you can't get them. If somebody leaves you because somebody else wants to poach them, then it becomes very difficult to find that talent. And your back office cannot wait. It's every week, it's moving every week. You need to pay contractors, you need to invoice, you need to collect cash, right? So if you have these processes sitting with somebody, it's less of a headache, and then you can focus, especially when you have this downturn, you can focus on just keeping your business going, as opposed to trying to focus on collecting cash or paying contractors correctly or trying to get your accounts out so that you can see how you're doing, because you do have somebody who's doing that all for you. So I think definitely looking at cost is a key thing. But speaking about the cost that I really know about and the cost that we save people, the back office is one cost that you can really get rid of.
So I guess the big barrier to that is people feel like if I'm outsourcing, I lose control. They're my customers. I'm going to have someone else talking to them. How do you get over and navigate that bar?
It's a difficult one because it's emotional. It's more emotional than it is. And if I could get you a few FDs that I've spoken to over the years as customers of ours, I think they'd stand here now and say, actually, it's not a problem. Because what I've said to them is, look, the comfort blanket from having somebody in your office is I can walk over and say, can you give me that? Can you send me a copy of that? But actually, we work on Teams now. You don't even need to pick up a phone. So actually, even picking up a phone is too much. Right now, you can just team somebody and say, Andy, can you send me that? Can you give me this? So distance really doesn't matter. Where somebody is located really doesn't matter in terms of actually producing a process. And we work with businesses all over the place where it's almost like we know them and people have never actually met. They've only met on Teams, right? But the service and the way we work together is actually like we know each other because we have meetings every week. We do whatever is needed to deliver the service. So I think it's a concept. And I have one client who actually says paying people is a core competence. So that was, I remember that was the discussion. It's a core competence, which therefore it has to be in-house. I think that's the fallacy, really. I think paying people just needs to be done right. Invoicing just needs to be done right. The experience of the customers and the contractors just needs to be a good one. Where it happens really doesn't matter. And you can see that from all the technology today in terms of banking. I think you could have argued that I need to see my banker, right? How often do you see your banker now with your banking app? The likes of Monzo, Tide would not exist today if that was to be true, right? I think what you want, what I've proved to the customer in all cases is that when you pick up that phone or when you do that Teams message or when you send that email, you have a response. That's what's important. I think being based in the office next to you so that we go get the coffee together is less relevant.
So a lot of our members will be running businesses now, and at some stage in the future, they'll be looking to exit those businesses either via trade sale, MBO, etc., etc. What advice would you give to people now around putting their business so it was able to sell? You've been in enough data rooms, you've been acquired. What are the top tips you'd give for people to make their business as saleable as possible?
I think the trajectory of the business is important, and the diversity of the business in terms. So, for example, if we just look at recruitment businesses, if you're only doing perm, would you be as attractive as if you're doing perm and contract, right? If you're a healthcare business only doing doctors, would you be more attractive if you're doing nursing as well? Or if you're doing NHS and you're doing private as well? So I think the trajectory and quality of the business matters, and as well as actually the structural setup of the business really matters. So I know businesses that are clients of ours where what we provide them does make a difference to how attractive they look because it's all well managed. If you have an audit, which is always part of the due diligence, as you know, Andy, everything stacks up. We can bring all the invoices, IR35 questions and risk within the supply chain. All those things have been addressed because we support you in making sure that you address those. Liability with HMRC and things like that, all that. So I think I'd say definitely be on the right trajectory. Don't be in a hurry to sell. Unless you're on the right trajectory, because you get more for your money if your trajectory is right, your business is promising, your numbers stack up. And I think if your structure and risk, the business being de-risked is important because that risk is going to play on your multiple, right? So definitely working with people who can help you de-risk the business is key. And then the quality of your team, right? So make sure the team stacks up, because in recruitment, what are you buying? You're buying people, right? So I think you have to have a good team. So I think if you look at those things, I'm certainly not standing here to be an expert, but when I look at the value in terms of some of the business we've dealt with that have actually gone to sale, those seem to be some of the things that help them get good value.
I definitely agree with you there. When you go in and you're looking at businesses and you're doing that due diligence process, actually just how easy it is to get to the basics is really, really important. And if it's difficult to get to the basics and you don't have that level of confidence that this is really well run, you start to worry about, you know, if you can't do this, what else? You know, and actually it gives you that confidence when you go in, and if it's slick and it's just, yeah, we've got this, bang, 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 makes a huge, huge difference. And ultimately, someone once told me, he said, there's always a reason why someone would sell a business, but what's the reason you'd buy a business? So I always say to owners, have your business ready to go. Imagine someone came in and offered you a chunk of money tomorrow. Would you be able to sell? Would you be ready? Would you be match fit to sell it? Because sometimes you know, I've seen that where people haven't been ready. They've had a good offer and it's gone away because, you know, they couldn't demonstrate the basics of how they run their business. And, you know, go back a couple of years later, got it knocked into shape and it would go, but not for as much as it could have done then. They sort of missed their moment in time. So I guess there's some pretty straight answers for how to get your business into shape for that.
And I think, Andy, that being ready absolutely matters, and that de-risking of the business, I think, comes in there. So, you know, simple things like just the supply chain, right? In recruitment, you know, if let's say, for example, IR35 is an issue for your business and you haven't been treating it right, you know, that could affect your price significantly. If you know, a lot of recruitment businesses, you'd be surprised, don't do their accounts every month, so they don't know what's actually under the bonnet. And I know that's surprising, but it is a reality, right? If they're big business, they do. If they're smaller businesses, they don't. But believe it or not, they're even bigger businesses who are behind a number of months, and you'd be surprised. So I'd say, yeah, before you definitely come to that, de-risk the business by making sure you totally understand where potential liabilities lie and get some help with that, because that does have a significant hit to your price.
Noted. So now Worker Group are part of Workwell, and I think they're going around buying up everybody. So yourselves, international companies, various different organizations. What was the experience of going through that? Because you've built your thing at Worker Group, and then suddenly these guys come in and say, right, we're buying you. How's that transition been for you?
It's been great. Honestly, it was a great experience. I've been through a number of acquisitions, and I think the difference with being through an acquisition as an employee, you kind of feel job security. I suppose if you're a person who worries about job security, I've never worried about that, honestly, Andy. And I always try to train even my employees to say, never worry about job security. Just worry about your skill. Okay, worry about your skill and what the value you bring, and don't worry about job security. So, but I think with the employee version, you're like, I'll get another job if I don't like it, right? When you're part of the equity holders, you're thinking, oh God, okay, what kind of partners are these going to be, right? And I think looking at this, the guys at Workwell are great. We kind of checked whether we were aligned before we did the deal, and that was really important. And I think we were so aligned it was untrue. You know, when you're always thinking this is too good to be true, and you just kind of waiting. Let's see the true colors. None of that. I think they're real gents. They do what they say they will do. And the transition was seamless. And the transition was absolutely seamless. They facilitate, support, get out of the way. That's what they do. They facilitate, support, get out of the way, let us get on with it. And I think that's quite impressive in terms of supporting us to get where we want, facilitating us to grow in the way that we want, and getting out of the way of decision making that just delays things. So there's no bureaucracy. We don't have any of that. If we need to get things done and they're good for the business, we get them done. So, you know, Workwell has been a really, really good thing to happen to us. Worker was great. But I think Workwell is going to take us to the next level.
So most people will know Workwell as being the former JSA umbrella business, and they'll know them from the umbrella side, from the I guess from the PSC accountancy side. So you're part of the business Workwell Outsourcing. What exactly is it you do?
Yeah, explaining exactly what we do sometimes is difficult, but I'd say if you think of a recruitment business, it provides people, right? That's what it does. But a recruitment business needs to pay these people it's providing, otherwise called contractors, temps, interims, whatever you want to call them. And it needs to invoice their clients. So that's the core. That's the core. And then on top of that, it needs to collect that money, because if it doesn't collect that money, it's going to have trouble. And then it needs to pay its people, its own staff, and it needs to do its accounts. What we do is provide those services, and we provide them in one of two ways. We can provide those services to especially bigger businesses in a way that you can choose what you want, or we can provide those services as a packaged, fully functional back office, including funding to smaller businesses. Because just if I took you back in the history of Worker Solutions, when we formed it, we were dealing with bigger business. We tried to sell to the small founding businesses, and we quickly understood that it was difficult for them to pay a fixed price. Fixed prices are good for big business. Fixed price are really bad for you when you just started, because if I'm telling you have to pay £500 a month, say, for example, and you've only made one invoice or 300, you're like, well, that doesn't work, Yves. So we realized percentage charging is actually the way. That's why they all go to these kind of businesses. And so we looked around, and lucky for us, we came across EasyPay. And we acquired a business called EasyPay, which provides 100% recruitment funding to smaller businesses, has been around for at least 20 years, actually. So that was a good acquisition for us, because that meant not only can we look after bigger business, but we can also look after the smaller businesses. So in that respect, when we do approach a small business, we're going to provide the full funding with the full back office. All right, so they don't need an invoice discounting facility. They don't need factoring. They don't need to go to the bank. They can just come to us and we'll provide the whole service. If you're a bigger business, on the other hand, you might need consultancy on how to get in time in. So, for example, we are resellers of in time. So in that case, we'll go to big business that have taken in time but can't actually get it to work. And we've had clients like that, and we will work with them to make it work. And we will project manage the whole process, maybe work with Bullhorn, maybe work with JobAdder to actually make this whole process work. And that's what we'll do for the big business. And then they might even outsource the back office to us, or they might not. We might just be doing a consultancy gig, or we might be doing a full back office. But with the small businesses, they'll just come to us and say, right, I want to recruit. I'm starting, I've got my 3 men, or I've got just myself, and then we'll sign them up. And we'll take them through. And, you know, Andy, we've had some really, really good businesses. 1 man starting, and before you know it, they're doing turnover of 4 million, 5 million, right? So it's really interesting.
And the needs are so different. The required group, we've got 3 different groups, effectively: the dinghy, the bridge, and the bounty. And all of them just want different things. So the dinghy's the 0 to 5, the bridge is ostensibly 5 to 50. And what they need is completely different. But what you're saying is, if you're starting your business, don't worry about the back office. We've got that. Don't worry about funding. We've got that. You just, go and bill, basically, which is what I guess recruiters starting a business just need to do.
100%, 100%. And, it's a difficult gig when you're starting, Andy, because actually a lot of times you don't know what you need.
Yeah.
A lot of times you don't know what you need.
And when you find out what you need, it's a bit painful.
And it's confusing, because then you go through the contract. It's so like, what is this? So, and that's why, again, in terms of what we provide, it's really important, because if we start you off as a business that has 100% recruitment finance, what we're basically saying is we are paying your contractors for you, don't worry about it. We're paying your margin up front, don't worry about it. If you're doing perms, we will fund them as well, don't worry about it. But we'll charge you a percentage of X, right, on your gross turnover, okay? Every week, as you put that through, we're charging, right? Now, assume you've grown to, say, 7 million turnover. That starts to become expensive. And you go, oh, wait a second, this is looking pretty expensive, especially with what we know is happening in the market with the interest rates. Interest rates now 3%. We all got used to having 0% money, right? Now it's not the same thing. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And when your turnover is high, you start to think, wait a second, I'm paying a lot. Now, the great thing with being with Workwell Outsourcing is we go, well, if you want to come out of this model, we can set you up with an invoice discounting facility because we work with various partners, and you come out of this percentage model to go into a fixed model where you actually have a fixed cost per month that, right, this is what I'm paying. I've got my own invoice discounting facility, and you still don't have to worry about it because we'll manage all that for you. But the setup is different. Your back office cost is not growing at the same percentage rate as your business, which is okay when you're small. But when you grow up and you're, 5 million turnover and above, it does start to become expensive, and you need to look at it.
We actually saw a whole host of companies start up during the COVID downturn. So people who are either furloughed or laid off went and started their own businesses. And I fully expect to see that again. The big difference was there was a lot of government support around at the time, which I don't think is going to be available this time, which will make it a big difference. And also, I think everyone was of a view that it'll probably be over shortly and it will come back, whereas no one knows how long this may take. So, but I am fully expecting to see lots of people, using this as an opportunity to start their own agencies. Is that what you guys are sort of seeing through your data at the moment?
Well, we actually did see it when the bounce back loans were on offer. We saw a lot of businesses start up, maybe some for the wrong reasons, maybe some leaving a bounce back loan that they're taking to start a new. So there's always, in recruitment, there's always funnies, right? But I think what we do know is happening now. So insurance is one of the hardest things for us in terms of barriers to business. Yeah, and when I say barriers to business, it's barriers for our clients. Trying to get limits that can facilitate, especially certain sectors, construction being one of them, it can be very limiting. And the reason for that is because when we speak to the underwriters is because of the higher level of insolvencies happening now, right? The businesses were supported through the COVID period, and obviously they should be. But I think when you get that level of support, you forget what the reality is, right? And I think the one thing I'll tell you about recruiters, Andy, is recruiters spend a lot, right? That's why I talked about looking at cost, because I think that's the weakest area of recruiters. They do spend a lot. So I think what's coming back to bite is the cost of money is definitely coming back to bite. The cost of insurance. If you're lucky enough to be in a white collar market where you're dealing with good clients, you might turn a blind eye to insurance. But when you're in certain markets, you can't. You absolutely must have that insurance. And if you're going through a recruitment finance funding product, we will have to definitely get insurance for you. And so the cost of insurance is a limiting thing. So for me, I think the worry right now is around the cost of insurance, the insolvencies, and whether actually how the market is going to work out, because funding is quite expensive. Getting this money is getting more expensive. I know we know it from mortgages, obviously, as on a personal note, people see it from mortgages. But certainly if you're running a business, I think what recruiters don't understand is the cost of that funding is now starting to go up, and you really need to make sure you've got a good deal. You need to understand. And also, I think the other thing is you need to understand what a good deal is. You might go to a provider who gives you a really low rate, but actually there are lots of hidden charges that you're not aware about, right? So for example, If your debt goes over 90 days, for example, you get a refactoring charge. So there are providers who do that. And as a recruiter, you don't know that. So really looking around and understanding what it is you're paying for is so important.
And if people are currently on a product, they've got that, they can just come to you and you'll do a like to like for them, and then they can make that decision.
Absolutely, Andy. And I think I've had many recruiters I speak to, Andy, where I tell them, don't worry about doing business with us. I mean, just having a chat, if I can make the time, having a chat and telling you what you should do or what you should look at, not what you should do, but certainly what you should look at, is enough sometimes for me to say, you know, if you feel we're good for you, come back. And certainly my team does that very well as well, in terms of saying, this is what you need to look at. If you've got 3 providers, look at what they're offering. It might be a bank, it might be another provider of a back office, or it might be something in-house that you're looking at. Compare it and see, because it's a package you want to be looking at. Don't just look at the cost of funding. Look at the cost of your back office put together. So the funding, the cost of your pay and bill collections and accounts, how does it all stack up to get you the best value?
Absolutely. Well, look, I think we have got exciting times, or interesting times. The great thing I always find about recruitment is it's never boring, it's never dull, it's never stale. Yeah. It's either boom or bust, champagne and razor blades, as someone once described it. So,
more of the champagne, please. More,
hopefully more champagne. So perhaps we'll catch up early next year and just find out, you know, get a hot take on where the market is. But if people do want to have that chat and they do want to compare you, or they're thinking about starting up their own business and what you can potentially offer, how can they get hold of you, Yves?
I'm on LinkedIn. If you look at me on LinkedIn, I'm on there, and I've got a team as well that are always happy to help. Somebody like Sheila. Sheila's on our team as well. You'll see her on our Workwell Outsourcing website. We've got Dan Benson as well. So really good people to kind of support. But certainly, if you find me on LinkedIn and reach out to me, happy to help you out. Even direct you to, it might be CRMs you're looking at, it might be back office systems you're looking at. I speak to a lot of people in that respect, Andy. And again, it's not selling. It's really saying, if I can help you make the right decision, it's a kick for me in some way. I can't explain it, but it's good, even if we don't get the business. Somehow, some way, it always comes around anyway.
I get that. And we'll put the notes alongside the podcast. And well, great to catch up with you again. Who knew that being paired together on a golf day, we'd now be doing this across the continent. So well, thanks so much.
Next time we pair up, Andy, I'm now better. I've been on the range. I've practiced.
Good to hear. All right, catch up soon.
Cheers, Andy. Thank you very much. Take care.